Welcome to Fold and Share Theology. We're your hosts, Justin Mercier and Bruce Pagano, and this is Theology for Everyone. Well, hey everybody, welcome back to Fold and Share Theology. We're your hosts, Justin Mercier, here with Bruce Pagano.
Hi.
Hey, and we are on video. This
different
is what our
setup.
faces look like.
We got a different setup. This is what we look like.
I upgraded to my own green room, so.
Oh yeah. And actually, I have the background that I've always wanted to use the bookcase for. Like I've always thought, like, oh man, I wish I could just have the bookcase in the background. So every time we got an opportunity to record, like we would set it long ways, so we were sitting on the side. But I got my JD from Scrubs over here, and got Rocky Balboa up here, and I got Fred Rogers back there. With them anyway, and then my books.
Yeah,
right there.
Yeah, so, we've got your, like when I was closing one of our boxes, we had two of your books right there at the top. They're going on the bookshelf as soon as we unpack it there. So,
you guys are all moved. Said it didn't go as smooth, like it wasn't horrible, but it didn't go as smoothly as you had planned initially.
Yeah. We were hoping just to do two trucks with two 6x12 foot trailers. We'd load everything up and that sort of thing. And as we were, here, and this isn't bad, but one of the guys who brought one of the trailers, I thought it was going to be like a big one, like the other one we got. But it wasn't. It was like a smaller one, which is totally fine. I'm so super thankful for it anyway. So then we loaded the two trailers up and we were like, that only covered about half the stuff there.
Yeah.
So I ran like a mile down the road. Someone drove me.
Right.
We drove about a mile down the road and I said, do you have any U-Hauls? And they're like, yeah, we got this 15 footer, whatever. I was like, okay, cool. So I got that, brought it back. And so actually what was funny is that, so U-Haul gives you like 164 miles included in your rental.
I didn't know that. I thought you had to pay all the miles.
Well, so then they were like, yeah, you get 164 miles and then it's, you pay by mile or whatever. So we're driving. Now, my wife was in one of the cars and she was way ahead because like literally like the gauge only went to like 90 miles an hour in this old U-Haul. There was not even cruise control in this U-Haul. Nice. So that really stunk. That was horrible. But it only going to 90 and literally I was trying to push 80 the whole time. So we were like maxing this thing out. But Jessica went in the car and so she called us, she was like 20, 30 minutes ahead. And she said, hey, the exit to the Twin Falls exit is backed up all the way to like the freeway and they ain't moving. And she's like, we've been here for like 20 minutes and like we haven't moved at all. So we went past that to the Kimberly exit and had to go around. And I thought, oh man, like I'm gonna hit this 160 mile and then like I'm gonna pay all this extra money. When I brought it back, I just was like, let me just check what the odometer was at, and then I did it, and like literally it was 162 miles I put on it when I returned it.
That's cool.
So it was like that close.
You had to pay for a couple miles.
Oh no, I was under it. It was like 164 was free, and I have 162.
Cool.
Yeah, so it was like right there.
That's a PTL moment, a praise the Lord moment.
Oh, it was because, and it's funny because our friend Bob, he's the one who made the trip with us to Twin Falls, and it's funny. I'm getting out of the U-Haul, and this nicely dressed man came out. Hey, how's it going? And I'm like, hey, because I saw some other U-Hauls that were all parked there, and I said, hey, I'm just returning this U-Haul. And he's like, sure, I'll take your key for you. And I was like, thanks. And I got back into Bob's truck, and we're driving away, and I was like, I probably should have asked that guy like his name or something. Like,
right.
I probably should have like talked to somebody.
You're
I was like, can you like
crossed.
give me? Yeah. And Bob was like, he looked official. And I was like, yeah, but don't all scammers look official? And I was like, I'm sure it'll be okay. And then I got an email later on. Like about an hour ago that was like, here's your receipt from your trip. So I was like, okay, someone checked it in.
You're like, thank God.
Yeah, exactly. So, I thought, well, that's a great scam. Think about it. Hey, I'll take it for you. You get
Yeah.
in that person's U-Haul, you go
Although,
party it up.
yeah, I was gonna say, what do you do with U-Haul if you scam someone's U-Haul from them? You just put a bunch
You know what you
of
do? You just get
Proud Boys
30.
back and go to a parade.
You get 30 of your best Proud Boy friends and you go to a gay parade. That's what you do. Yeah.
Oh man.
I know.
I'm just
I
joking. That
know.
was uncalled for.
Well, it's Idaho. Apparently,
Yeah.
that's just the thing that happens in Idaho.
Yeah.
So,
You know that
no, it got returned.
only one of those guys were from Idaho. All the other ones came in
Mm-hmm.
from other places.
That's just crazy to me.
It blows my mind.
It's not worth it. Not
Yeah.
worth it.
Like you got arrested not at home.
Yeah.
Which means
exactly.
now you have to get back home.
Like you gotta harass people from like not even your own community. Like you gotta someone else's community.
Like you have no buy-in to this community, but you're gonna come.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess so.
I know.
Anyway, not what we're talking about tonight. We aren't. Let's talk about
like
what we're drinking because, huh?
Oh, I was gonna say I saw a post where your wife was had like a moms for hugs or something like that shirt for Pride.
Free mom hugs. That was
that
in 2018. Her and our friend Tally went to the Pride Parade in Boise. 2018. Yeah, it was 2018. And I was in Virginia. We lost friends over that.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think
we had people email us and text us and message us, not email. Who uses email anymore? But we had people text us and message us and tell us that we were wrong. Because I didn't go with her. I was in Virginia. I was at school. And the next day, after she shared some stuff, like she shared her experience on Instagram or something like that, the next day, I was still doing my old podcast, The Odd Show, and I got on and I just talked for like 18 or 20 minutes about kind of a different aspect of it. And we got messages from people that were friends of ours that were like, you're wrong, you shouldn't be encouraging this, you shouldn't, like, the stance you're taking on it's wrong, the way that you view this is wrong, this is not love, this is you're deceiving them and you're being deceived. And lost a number of friends over it. Christian friends. Even though we were like, we're still Christian, we're just trying to love people well.
Yeah. But do you even want to associate yourself with people who don't want to love that way anyway? So.
No, but it did make me sad. I was just like, this is garbage, man. Like, anyway.
Yeah. I was just thinking I was like, man, that'd be cool to have either a folding chair theology pride shirt or like even have one of those. And like, I think now I don't know. I mean, I think
you want to wear a free mama hugs. You want to wear a free mom hugs?
I'd be like free dad.
Buy it with your beer.
Actually, is it probably if I say
free dad chest bumps?
They probably yeah. There you go. That's what I would do. Yeah. Although who would want to chest bump me? You know,
nobody. They'd be like, "You will knock me down and kill me. You will cave my chest in."
I think. Here's the thing: is like I
think they're going to try and do it again this year. It's in September or something like that.
I would love to go to something like that, and it's always in the back of my mind. I'm like, I would love to show my little one that it's important for us to love everybody and support people, and but like, man, it's like the fear of like some sexist, racist, homophobic guy coming out there with a gun and shooting people up. Like that's a real fear. And I'm like, so I almost would want to go do it myself, but like,
we had talked about that, about bringing the kids, and it was kind of the same conversation. Was that revolved around that? I mean, and that was 2018, and it's worse now. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
So
yeah, exactly. Well, and I mean, I don't know. I guess people who are in that community, they're brave enough to go do the parade themselves.
Sure. Yeah,
and it's like,
I actually had a person that I know tell me that a friend, we don't spend enough time together for me to be like, oh, they're a good friend. They're not. But someone I know was just like, we were talking about just the Christian view and like how they feel afraid. And they were like, I feel like one day you're going to be walking down the street at a pride parade and see me beat up or hanging from a light pole or something. Because we live in Idaho. And I was just like, that's the worst thing that I've ever heard. That's horrible. And I feel like you mean that. And they were like, I do. I mean that. So Christianity, it's all love. But they feel afraid. And whether or not you were like, that's bullcrap, you should, no, it's a legitimate fear. They have a fear. And all of these Christian nationalists, this has been an argument that I've been hearing, like, they're not real Christians. They think they're real Christians. And who are you to say that they're not Christians? Who are you to say that they're not Christians who have a warped sense? And if they identify themselves as Christian, that's the face. That's the face. Anyway, doesn't matter. So it makes me sad that that's a fear, that's a genuine fear. So anyway, it does matter. I didn't mean it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter trying to convince people that Christian nationalists are Christians and they're just wrong Christians.
Yeah, exactly.
So
kind of
I feel like I have to be careful what I do now that we're on video.
Really?
Yeah, like hand gestures. No picking my nose. I can't pick my nose. Yeah, I can't get up because I'm not wearing pants, so I can't get up.
Yeah, well, it'll be good for people to see our faces, I guess.
Good is subjective. Good subjective.
Yeah.
Maybe good for people to see your face.
Well, I usually wear my glasses, but I have this like O light, and like you
can see the O. Yep.
So
I have your studio light.
Can you see? Yeah, actually, your lighting. Your lighting looks really good.
Cool.
We're gonna be
bounces nicely off the white bookshelves.
Yeah. I was gonna say we're painting all of this white soon.
Oh, okay. You're not gonna keep it green.
So it's gonna look really good. Well, I don't know.
Because it's like a green screen.
Cool.
You could put anything in there. It's a green screen.
I don't know how to do that. I don't know how there's is there a background
button
somewhere?
You should have a background thing. Like maybe not. Apps. Nope.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Choose virtual background.
Oh, choose virtual background. Yeah.
And then I have a green screen. I don't know. It says none right now. I don't know. I'll find something cool. I
got filters. I got cool shades. Can you see that?
Yeah.
With my glasses on.
Let me see. Oh yeah.
Stupid. Anyway, none.
How'd you do that? That's
cool. It's on filters.
All right.
This is totally this is ridiculous. This whole thing is ridiculous.
Yeah. I can clap for you.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Thumbs up.
All right. So what are you drinking? Because you're drinking something different than I'm drinking. Or the first drinking... I was gonna say for the first time, but we've had non-whiskey on this show before. We've drank.
Yeah, I was gonna say this tequila. In here, I found a bottle of Bacardi in my father-in-law's freezer. So, gotcha. So there's that, and then a Denver Broncos cup, because all my stuff's in box of stuff. So.
Are you're a 49ers fan?
Right.
Yeah. Should you be drinking out of a Denver cup?
Well, desperate measures, like all my stuff's in storage and
okay.
But
I'm drinking our staple Woodford. So
let me tell you though, drinking something, and I don't mean this in a bad way to my father-in-law, of course, but drinking something that is not high quality like Woodford is, it really, yeah, it's definitely putting a damper on my.
It downs the feel. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go get a bottle of Woodford and have it on my desk. Oh, that's the thing is I work from home again now.
Right.
Actually, I probably shouldn't say on my desk because then if my company finds out, then I'm,
no, just on your desk for when you are not working.
There you go. Yeah.
And not on camera.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So
I have mine right here. My bottle from the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah. I know. I actually really like that one.
Yeah.
The label changes the flavor.
Except that this one I just poured Woodford into it from a regular bottle.
You never know.
Right. Anyway. So we're talking about Will. Not Will I am, not William. We're talking about God's will or
not Will Smith.
Not Will Smith.
Yeah. Yeah, this one says our will and God's will. And so I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So you want to read it?
Yeah. I have it in the CSP. That's what we were reading last time.
I think that's what we read last time.
So it says here, so this is verse 13. My light is flickering up there for some reason. Can you see my light flickering?
A little bit.
That's not now. Okay. All right. Come now, you who say, today or tomorrow we will travel to such and such a city and spend a year there and do business and make a profit. Yet you do not know what tomorrow will bring, what your life will be. For you are like vapor that appears for a little while, then vanishes. Instead, you should say, if the Lord wills, we live and do this and do that. But as it is, you boast in your arrogance. All such boasting is evil. So it is sin to know the good and yet not do it. Boom.
Thoughts? Initial thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's kind of like I don't know. It is kind of like that mentality, like that kind of that day in, day out, do this, do that. We have a routine. We make our profit and we do our business. And it's like that. I feel like I've always been kind of taught like, or even just kind of think off the bat is like, we kind of make this time on earth just so frivolous, like, and it's just routine and we're just doing it day in day out and we're just working for the weekend and we're working for retirement, like
right.
And that's the thing is like when it talks about like yet you don't know what tomorrow will bring, we're so focused on 401ks and retirements and like what we want to do when we get to 65 that we don't even know if we're going to live till tomorrow.
Right. Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I've heard it kind of taught that same way, and kind of the premise behind it being I've heard people use it to suggest that you need to like confer with God on everything, even to the extreme of like what you should wear in the morning or like
what cereal should buy.
Yeah, like whether or not you should eat at McDonald's. The answer is always no. Although it's good. I mean, like we were talking about this the other day. The guy that did, I don't know if we were, but me and my wife were talking about the guy that did the Super Size Me documentary.
Oh, I love that documentary.
And he like,
some Morgan something.
Yeah, Morgan Spurlock.
That's it.
Morgan Spurlock. But like there comes a time where you're just like, I know I shouldn't eat this, and then you eat it and you're like immediately you regret it. Like before it hits your stomach, you're like, that was such a bad idea. And then the very next day you're like, I would love some McDonald's. Like I would love to.
Yeah.
And that guy did it for 30 days. And the doctors were like, if I remember correctly, it's been a while, but the doctors were like, you're going to kill yourself. You stop doing that. Anyway, God, should I eat at McDonald's? And God's going to be like, no, don't do it. Yeah. Anyway, so I've always kind of heard it taught that way. And it's not specifically like, so just kind of reminder that up to this point, James is talking about, and like right now in this part, he's talking about and has been talking about wisdom from above, right? Like he's talking about this idea of like what wisdom from above looks like, and that it's always other focused, always other person focused. And the other type of wisdom that is wisdom from the world is wrapped up in envy and self-ambition, and which we didn't even like, I don't know why we didn't dive deeper into what self-ambition is. But I feel like it's necessary to point out that this word self-ambition, like the phrase there, the word that's used is actually used often in the Bible when it's talking about someone who's seeking to be elected, or looking to gain political power or an office. Like, so it's used like self-ambition is used often negatively in reference to someone who is focused on gaining political power or political office in that era, or like in that time. It's wrapped around the art of self-promotion is what it like really what this selfish ambition means. And it's like this, it typically involves like unfair, like creating advantages for yourself through unfair means, and for the purpose of purely gaining power and status. It's this selfishness that kind of creates contention and strife, for your own purpose. And where have we heard that happening lately?
Right.
like you know what I'm saying? Like there's this degree of selfish ambition within our political system that is like, our political system has always been full of politicians that are like about themselves, and will usually use unfair means, for the purpose of gaining that political power and status. But like more recently, we see it creating on purpose contention between people, and not just party affiliates and, you know, like Democrats and Republicans, but intentionally creating contention between individuals and strife for the benefit of the person who's trying to gain office, right? Like Trump is notorious for this, and I don't care if you're a supporter of him or not. You can deny it all you want, but he's a demagogue in the worst sense, that he is about himself. Even like recently, that whole thing came out about Trump, like tricking his people, the defense fund thing, and he Ponzi schemed a bunch of, like, he took money from a bunch of donators and didn't use it for what he said he was going to, and like screwed him over. And he still gets away with it. He still gains support from that perspective, where it's just like, no, he literally cheated his supporters out for his own political purpose, and continues to create strife and contention between people, to the point where, and I don't care if you believe it or not, there's tons of evidence, that he incited insurrection. And go look up the definition of that. I don't care if you think that it was an insurrection, look up the definition of that, and some of the things that he said, and some of the conversations coming out with him and Mike Pence. And like, he does this, and that's not to say that every politician doesn't do it, but he has created an art out of this, and he knows it. Like, he's fully aware of that, because he was doing it as a businessman. He had a whole TV show. What was that called? Where he would be like, "You're fired."
Apprentice.
The Apprentice. The Apprentice was revolved around contention and strife for his own self-promotion, and he was teaching it to people, apprentices, to do the same thing, right? And so this selfish ambition, we're going to see that kind of unfold in this passage of scripture that talks about our will being done, or God's will being done. And so the context that he leads, that's all the context that he leads into this portion of scripture, talking about pride and humility. He leads into that talking about good judgment, and how, and all of that he uses to lead into how we are to look at God's will, or look to our own will, and then emphasizes that we place, or the emphasis that we place on it, and our intention for doing so. So like, there's two wills here, God's will and our will, and we're going to emphasize one or the other and there are specific intentions around why we do that and what we're looking for. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's like, it's so interesting because, politicians and political, um, affiliates or whatever have always been kind of boring and like, and this is like where it took politics to a whole different level. And it's so interesting because they're like, wait, can he do that? Like,
Right.
that doesn't sound right, and it's like,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so
Yeah.
there's and then like even just watching the insurrection trial stuff that's going on. I mean, even his own like people on video being like, the president told us that he's just gonna say, "Oh, it's rigged," and like and like the systems, right. And like
people that work
we
for
told
him, right?
Yeah, and like they're like testifying. People work for him. We're like, we told you, Mr. President, that's a bad idea. Like, there's no evidence of that. Well, we're just gonna say it. Well, that's not true though. It doesn't matter if it's untrue. We're just gonna say it. Like, and it's just like it's so interesting how that's all coming to the forefront here. And man, you're really seeing someone really being like, I'm gonna play out my own will, like, and like, right. And I'm gonna lie and steal to do it.
And the thing that blows my mind is people still support him, like Christians. And I'm not saying don't support him as a political. I think that he's not a good, like he's a great politician and that he's not a good person. But it blows my mind that Christians who are supposed to look at this type of behavior and say it's evil, instead are posting memes that say, "Oh, gas prices are horrible. I bet you missed the mean tweeter." And I'm like, no, it wasn't that he did mean tweets. It's that he dehumanized people, and he did the very things that buck against what it means to be the actual Christian. Here's the thing: people are like, "Oh, he's a new Christian." When he started, like, he's a new Christian. It's going to take some time. Well, when he got caught saying the P word, and people were like, "Oh, it was locker room talk," and then 4 years later, when he's in the Oval Office and people heard him call Mike Pence the same P word, that shows no growth. Like, right. Don't tell me he was a new Christian and that he's got room to grow, and then he continues to dehumanize people in the same fashion. Doesn't mention Christ often or ever. Like, he doesn't mention Jesus when it comes to Easter or salvation, like all these basic tenets of what it means to at least say you believe Christianity. And so people are like, it just blows my mind that Christians are like, give him a pass. They just give him a pass, and not as a political candidate. I don't care about that, whatever. But don't try and convince me that he's the new Cyrus, that he is God's chosen, that he's ordained for that. Like, nope. Like, you don't understand what it means then when it says that God ordains all authority. Like, that's you have misunderstanding of that. But also, he's not God's chosen in the way that you think he's God's chosen, because then you have to say that Hitler's God's chosen because he had authority too, and Pol Pot was God's chosen, and like Putin is God's chosen, although there are some Christians that are leaning that way, and it blows my mind. I'm just like, oh, the humanitarian violations just alone that exist in that, and your ability to say it's still God's using them. Like, what? Like, okay, okay, like, you can't, like, the fact that you can't separate a political view from a Christian worldview, which I don't think that you should be able to. But in this case, if you're going to hold your nose and vote for a candidate, say, no, like, I want to vote Republican, so I'm going to vote Republican, but he is not a Christian candidate. Okay, I can at least appreciate that. And just be honest about what you're compromising. Like, just, that's where I'm at in my life right now. Like, just be honest about what you're compromising or the concessions that you're making. Just be honest about that and be okay with it. And like, be okay. Like, you have to answer Jesus for that in the community you're a part of. But don't try and convince me that you're making a Christian decision to vote for someone who is antithetical to in everything that he does. And this would be a podcast about Trump, but it's just amazing to me that the things that we're talking about hold themselves up, like right now they hold themselves up in front of the scripture that we're talking about, and it's not good. you know,
right.
it's not good. And somehow there's excuses made for it. And it blows my mind. Anyway, so verse 13.
Yeah.
He's talking about, like, he's talking to people who kind of have this mentality toward living into their own desire to seek their own profitability, literally to gain something. Like, that's the whole point, is that he's talking to people that are like purely focused on gaining something. And so, like, as it gets down into that verse, the phrase engage in business is kind of this phrase that means to use a person or um, gain, or thing for gain. And there's not a specific indication that it's talking about that for this passage of scripture, because it's used elsewhere in the Bible, in the New Testament. But likely it does have some meaning associated with, for sure, trade or engaging in business, but in a way that we can't ignore the fact that it carries with it this meaning that James has been talking about extensively throughout all of this other stuff about the less fortunate, that you're going to use somebody else or something else for your own personal gain, which means you're going to other them. Like, you're going to hold them in this other place and categorize them as less than you and less important and not favorite. And so that's who he's talking to, is people that kind of have this impression of other people. And he's kind of warning Christians not to engage in that. Does that make sense? Like, for everything that he's already been talking about, it fits that idea.
Yeah.
So then he kind of gets into this idea that there's an indication here, kind of starting in verse 14, where James is pointing to the fact that Jesus tells us that you can't serve two masters. You remember that? I think that was Matthew 5 or 6, where he's just like, you can't serve two masters. And here, Luke, hold on, I wrote it down, that he's reminding us that Jesus is in Luke 12. No. So, like, he says you can't serve two masters. And then he's also reminding us that in Luke 12, there's this story of a man who plans his future and then dies. Do you remember that story? He's just like, this very night your soul will be required of you, or something like that.
Yeah. And
so he, like, James is kind of, as James does, like everything that James is talking about has to do with all of the stuff that Jesus has taught, like up to this point. We've talked about that, where like it's all about Jesus and his teaching and what Jesus was trying to get across. And so the implication here lies heavily around the idea that you can either live your life very self-focused, very much about yourself, which is how the world lives their life, or you can use that to categorize other people, or you can follow the way of Jesus in a way that cares for and lifts up other people, right? Like, so he's making this distinction here, is there's two ways that you can live your life, and the way of the world, which carries this wisdom that is very envious, based around envy and selfish ambition, and it is, I think he said, earthly, natural, and demonic. Or you can live it the way that heaven provides wisdom, and there's this whole litany: peacemaking, pure, gentle, like all this stuff, right? And that's the distinction he's making between the two groups of people. So any thoughts or input on that?
No, that's good. Yeah. I love how it's just like Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, just kind of tying all in together. Like, it makes sense that way.
Yep. And that's the thing for me, like, the only way it makes sense is the stuff that Jesus said.
Yeah, right.
Like you don't get to remove the things that the apostles talked about from what Jesus taught and kind of make it mean your own thing. It's kind of what we talked about on Sunday, where it's like, you just have to wrestle with is this the way of Jesus? And if it's not, how do I make that concession, and how do I be honest about that with Jesus and with my community? And how do I be okay with it? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's who he's talking to, and kind of like he's leading through that whole thing of, or he's trying to be consistent with what Jesus taught, and and we can't separate those things, right? I don't remember what verse 15 says. Hold on a second. We just read it.
Yeah.
Do you have it up still?
Yep. Instead, you should say, if the Lord wills, we will live and do this or that.
Right. Okay. So I think that's fairly simple in that, like, really it's just about giving attention. Hold on. There we go. Okay. It's going to take some getting used to the video aspect, like just kind of doing that whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
But I think this is pretty straightforward, and really kind of just centers around the idea of giving your attention to and devotion to considering God's desire for us as it applies to the kingdom and others.
Yeah.
Like when we're talking about making wise decisions and focusing on what God desires and God's will, and what we desire in our will, are we invoking gentleness? Are we seeking to bring peace? And if we're focused on selfish ambition, the answer is probably no, right?
Right.
And so then he gets into this chapter, or verse 16, that talks about boasting in your arrogance, and says that that's evil, right? And so this is about glorifying an attitude or worldview that trusts in earthly things. And so, like, what are some of those earthly things you think he's probably talking about?
I mean, I gotta imagine it's when we're talking about Sermon on the Mount, your clothing, your food, your money, your
right, power, money, wealth, influence, ambition, like your own selfish ambition to move ahead and gain and gain, right? And he calls these things evil, which kind of a big deal, like, right? Like, so like it kind of gets at this idea that, like, an evil heart can be revealed by our distrusting of God, kind of like I, not specifically, but like when Jesus is like, hey, in Matthew 6, when he's like, hey, don't worry about what you're going to eat and drink and where you're going to live and what you're going to wear, because your Father knows what you need. This is kind of pseudo that, where it's just like, oh, like, I have so much worry that I don't trust necessarily. Like, there's this distrust in me that God will provide for what I want. This kind of takes a step further into the realm of where it's just like, nope, I just don't trust God in this space. Like, so much so that I'm going to do it myself. I'm going to focus on answer my own thing. I don't have a need for God. I don't have a desire to enact the will of God or live out the will of God. I'm just going to do the thing that I want to do because I know that it will benefit me. And it's not like I had a moment of doubt, so like I could have trusted God to take care of this, but instead I went and got a payday loan or whatever. It's not that. Like, that's, I think that's a I believe but help my unbelief type situation more than is anything. But the evil in this space is just like, your intention is your own pure gain, that you so don't trust the intentions of God, that you reject them and can't see that like the fact that they benefit other people makes you angry, like creates a situation where you're like, I don't even want to believe that the thing that God has for this situation is beneficial at all, because it only benefits other people. And so you reject it and you distrust it for your own selfish gain. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then he wraps it up by saying, which this is, I'm going to just read it, and then I'm going to ask you to kind of weigh in on it.
Yeah.
So he wraps it up by saying, so it is a sin to know the good and yet not do it. That seems pretty big deal.
I kind of think about it in the way of like, so, for me, like, I kind of think about like, okay, in order for me to heal from myself through, um, high blood sugar and, being type 2 diabetic and overweight for a long time, and most standards still overweight. I know that the key to that is you got to eat healthy, you got to cut your carbs and sugars, you got to stop drinking soda, you need to work out, like you need to do these things because your body can only take so much, and like the things that are happening to your body now are the result of the things that you've been neglecting. And
Right.
it's like I always knew that, but I didn't do it, and
Right.
like now I'm suffering the consequences for it. And even so, in the midst of the consequences, I still don't do it right most of the time, like and like, so I kind of feel like it's the same thing where it's just like, what a sin is sin, yet you still are doing the sin, and you know how to stop the sin, but you don't. And it's
Right.
like, and isn't that the most purest form of like evil in a way? Like where it's just like, I I know I know what I'm supposed to do. Like, and I think even like, doesn't Paul say that at one point? Like, I know what
The
the
things
Lord
that
wants
I
me to do,
want
but I
to
still don't.
do, I don't do, and the things that I don't want to do, I do.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's like the same kind of thing where, isn't that just that is the fallen human nature? Is it's so much easier to do the wrong thing, and it feels so much better too. Like
Yeah. Sometimes.
it just feels so much better to like just do the wrong thing. Like I like for me, like I will put down, if I'm like really hungry, I'll put down probably uh two large pizzas. I could do two large, or like I could do, four double doubles at In-N-Out. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like I could put it down, but what my body needs is salad. Like, and this is like a salad really in the long run is gonna make me feel better, give me more energy. It's gonna be less. It's not gonna hang on my body, but what I want is I want that the juicy burger and the bun and the cheese
Right.
filled crust and like, and so for me I kind of think of it like that way, where it's just like, man, like everything from being responsible with money to relationships to Bible reading to all of it. It's like I know what I'm supposed to do, and yet I still don't do it. And it's just like um and um and it's kind of like that, even that verse right before it is like, you boast in your arrogance, like, and that boasting is what is evil,
Right.
and it's just like, look at my like Instagram. I post on Instagram and I've got like, I'm dressed in a nine to go from my drinking, but I didn't my car payment, like that sort of thing, like. So it's just, yeah, I think it's very practical. That's what James is all about, right? Is practicality.
Oh yeah.
It's that whole part of it where it's just like, what to do, but you still don't do it. Like,
Right. Yeah. And it
mhm.
like, yeah, and I want to make sure that that's kind of emphasized, because it's one thing to not do the wrong thing, right? Like it's like I used to say when I was a dean, I used to say to kids, it's real easy to not get in trouble. You just got to not do the things you're not supposed to do. Like you literally don't have to expend any energy to, and like if you're supposed to stay in your seat, literally it takes more energy for you to get up out of your seat and do the wrong thing. If you're not
Yeah,
supposed to, throw your pencil in class across the room like literally you just have to do nothing and you don't do the wrong thing. Like it's that simple. But James takes it this step further where he's just like, it is a sin. It is a violation of God's law. You are missing the mark. It is evil for you to know what is good and to not do it. Like, and so what's good? Like in this context, what James is talking about, what is good?
I would think my first initial thought is, if we're talking about the comparisons to the Sermon on the Mount, it's providing for the least of these. I would think, like, it literally is provide for the least of these and undo oppression, and to know that you can do that but don't do it is evil.
And to know that you should pray for to love your enemy and pray for those who persecute you, and to know that you should not hate, and to know that you should not lust, and to know that, or like, and those are not like, don't lust, don't hate. It's like, don't categorize people to the point, like bring people in close to you to the point where you're in such renewed and right relationship with them that you can't hate them. And if you do, you still don't have an excuse, because you need to love your enemy. Take care of the low and the least. So like, what is good is everything that Jesus says it means to follow him. Like, that's what's good. Not playing favorites, and not just not playing favorites, elevating those who would not be favorited, moving those up to a seat where the favorite would sit, is doing the thing that you know that is good, and doing it. And so like James takes it to this whole other level where he's just like, it's not enough to just not do the thing. And not that he's taking it up a level from Jesus. He's reiterating, Jesus wasn't just telling you not to do bad things. Jesus was imploring you and expected you to do good things, like to do things that benefit other people. Because this whole thing's about like, not just not moving to another place without asking God if you should move there first. This whole thing is about not saying, I'm going to move here for my own selfish purposes, and that's the only thing that matters. Instead, the will of God is that you would consider other people, that you wouldn't use other people, that you wouldn't other people, that you wouldn't categorize them into a place that puts you above them. Those are all, like, that's all the will of God. And so as you seek the will of God and you seek to be like Jesus, you're going to do these good things, and to not do them is a sin. Right. And so when we start talking about helping refugees, and I'm not talking about illegal immigration, there's if you don't understand the difference between refugees and immigrants, you don't understand what you're talking about, and you've missed the conversation. Like, you're arguing two different things. And so refugees, people fleeing and seeking refuge from other countries, are not just illegal immigrants hanging out on the border trying to like breach the wall and bring rapists and murderers. And that's not what's happening. They're seeking refuge from violence, whether political, religious, whatever. They're seeking refuge. There is a process for allowing that. And if your response is, oh, like if Jesus is like, hey, you're supposed to care for the refugee and bring them in and welcome them and house them and feed them and take care of them, and your stance is, yeah, but what if there's murderers in there? And nobody's saying just let people come in willy-nilly across the border. Like, I mean, nobody's saying that. But if your stance is like, nope, build a wall, don't let anybody in, you've, like, what James is saying is, if you know what the good and right thing to do is, and you don't do it, you're sinning. Yeah. You're sinning. And you're not, like, again, I say this all the time, you're not arguing with me, Bruce, what about border security? I'm not saying you can't care about border security, but like, your intention for building a wall is to stop everybody from coming in. Well, do it the right way. Okay, do it the right way. Like, like, you don't even want to do reforms that allow refugees to come in quicker, because that, like, for you to come into this country as a refugee, that is one of the longest, most enduring and involved processes. Like, murderers aren't getting in, terrorists aren't getting in. I'm not going to say unequivocally that none of them will get in, because it's impossible to know that 0 times, but like, it's not happened yet. Like, it's not happened yet. And we let in a lot of refugees. Often right now we're accepting Ukrainians, and and Idaho's accepting Ukrainians and refugees, and yeah, so I think it's a big deal that he calls it a sin. That he's just like, if you know what the right thing to do is, if you know you're supposed to feed widows and orphans, and you're supposed to love people, and you're supposed to care for people, and you're supposed to make a way for people, and you're supposed to honor people, and you don't do it, you're sinning. That's
right.
that's a pretty big accusation that you should probably deal with.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like um it's like it's that same it's just that same thing like where at the end of Matthew 7 or whatever it is, it's like there'll be plenty of Christians who do these things in Jesus' name. And I'll literally say, Jesus says, I'll say to them, I never knew you. Like
Mhm.
you literally, I never had a relationship with you. Yeah, but we did all these things. It's like, it's the same thing. It's just like your sin is separation. It's like you said, not hitting the mark. It's that separation. It's like you're literally separating yourself by knowing what the right thing to do is and then not doing it.
Right. I think a really good example is, um, if we're talking about the will of God, um, when Jesus is telling them that he's going to be crucified and that he has to suffer, right? And that's the will of God. And then
Yeah.
Peter says, nope, it won't be that way. And he says, get behind me, Satan, right?
Yeah.
And
Right.
so when we're dealing with people who are violating the will of God, like if someone is speaking against other people and is xenophobic or homophobic or misogynist or just a horrible person that says mean things over Twitter, and we support that person instead of saying, get behind me, Satan, like that is not the will of God. Like, because they're both the will of God. Like they're like Jesus being crucified, will of God, taking care of widows and orphans, will of God. And so if we dismiss it and we say, yeah, well, he's just saying what we won't say, you're sinning. Like that's not even me. Like I'm not even trying to interpret that differently to advance my own agenda. Like he's saying, Jesus made clear that taking care of people and treating people kindly and like Jesus made clear that that is the will of God, to love God and love your neighbor and love each other. Like he made clear. And so when you support someone without rebuking them for what they've said that violates the will of God, you're sinning. And
Right.
you should probably deal with that.
I think of too is you pointed out in your book, and I actually think there's a second part of it in your book. Um, you pointed out the one, maybe it was your book. I'm pretty sure it's your book. I'm pretty sure.
I mean, you've read
You
three
had pointed
books
out
in
the
the last
fact.
few years, so
I know, yeah,
you've only, yeah, one of them.
mostly. um, is the way that we truly experience Jesus is with
Yeah.
when two or more are gathered. Um, I think that there's maybe even a secondary way to experience Jesus, and that is when Jesus says, "When I was hungry and I was thirsty and I was naked
Oh.
and like imprisoned, like you didn't do these things." And I'm like, Jesus, when were you ever that? He's like, when you do it for the least of these, you're doing it for me. In my mind, I'm like, isn't that how we truly experience Jesus? Is that like not only with two or more gathered, but even just you going out and
Yep.
doing the will of God,
Yep. Yep.
isn't that where we truly experience Jesus as
For the
well?
least and the low. Yep. Absolutely. 100%. Yes. Yep.
So I think
Yep. You're right.
it's very interesting. It's like people have this notion like, oh, I have a, and that's the thing is I have the same notion. Oh, I have this personal relationship with Jesus. I think what Jesus is telling us is no, there is no personal relationship with Jesus, as in
Apart from
Jesus,
other people.
apart from other people and serving the low and the least, like
Right. That's
which
what I'm
is
saying.
other
Like
people.
the only relationship you have with Jesus,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying that you don't experience a um a connection, a personal salvation connection to Jesus as your king, right? But kings have more than one um citizen. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not the only one in the kingdom. And so the way that you experience the king, the way that you interact with the king is with the citizens of that kingdom. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you gather around, you're a part of a kingdom. You're not on, like, you're not in this interpersonal, just you and like, there is no agreement between you and Jesus. There's no agreement between you and Jesus. There's an agreement between Jesus and his body. That's it. There's a connection between Jesus and his body. And so I think the low and the least make up that. I mean, he says it in the Beatitudes, inherit the kingdom of heaven, like the poor in spirit, and like the kingdom of heaven is yours. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, he makes these clear distinctions, and that makes these clear comments revolving around the fact that the kingdom is made up of people that you don't realize it's made up of. And it's not all like medium to high income white dudes. It's just not. Like, it's going to be a lot of poor people, a lot of really sad people, a lot of people that felt like they didn't have hope until they found hope in Jesus. And you're going to be really, like, I heard a pastor say one time, like, you're going to be really probably disappointed at what heaven looks like when you get there. Like, if you think that you're the demographic that Jesus is speaking to, you're going to be sorely disappointed. Like, if America is the new Jerusalem, you're going to be disappointed in what the new Jerusalem looks like.
So, isn't it interesting that I think this is like the word picture I kind of think of is, I think of like a king, right, with a crown and dressed in the nines of, white and purple robe, kind of thing. And I feel like there's like an underground tunnel that goes directly to like the like projects or the poor areas or the slums or whatever. And that's where like he goes, and the people of the area just know the king. They just know him, and they just like hang out with him. And it's somebody who comes along and they have like their their hat and their accolades and their robes, and they're like, I'm here to meet the king. And like the people, you have to go see him. Oh, he just comes sees us all the time.
Right.
Like,
oh, there's a story that's similar like that. Like, there's a story that's, I'll have to find it. No, like, there's a story I've heard that's similar to what you're saying.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of just gotta think of that where it's like the person who has all the accolades are like, you wouldn't know the king. Like, if anyone knows the king, it would be me because I studied the king. And they'd be like, no, the king comes every Tuesday and feeds us. Like,
I know the king feeds you. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like that's like when, and so if you're that person who's like, I've got accolades and I've got knowledge and I've got degrees, and it's like, okay, well, if you want to meet the king, you gotta go to the poor areas. Oh, my robe will get dirty.
Right.
Okay, then you'll never meet the king. Like, and if you're not willing to go there, then why would he be willing to see you? Like, that's where he spends his time.
Right.
And so it's just, I think of that and I'm like, it really kind of shifts it because you it's like this whole especially this whole American race that we run is so like accolades and cars and houses and and it's like money and retirement and vacations, and like those are all like great things, but we typically go, that's what's important, and I don't have time to do all these other things. And it's like like, here's the thing is, even for me, seeing somebody with a sign that just says please help or whatever, I'm like, I don't know if that's the low and the least, but you know what, like, I'm gonna just give them money if I can. If I have whatever change I have, whatever $5 bill I have or $20 bill, I'm just gonna give it. And I don't know what they use it on. I don't need to know. I just know that like someone is saying, please help, and I'm just gonna do it. Like, I'm gonna, and like, maybe that's the best I can do right now. But like, I think that's not like the end point. That's just the starting point.
Yeah, that's good. Nope. Amen. We'll end there.
Mm-hmm. Sweet.
I'm cool.
Awesome. Sweet. All right. Well, we got one more chapter. I was trying to go to the next.
Yeah, we're in chapter 5 now. So
yeah, chapter 5. Oh, the title of this says "Warning to the Rich." Oh man.
Oh, there's 4 different sections. So warning to the rich, waiting for the Lord, truthful speech. Oh,
an effective prayer. All right. So we got about 10 more episodes done.
Yeah, right. Let's try and do 2 more.
All right.
Maybe
First
3.
2, last 2?
We'll see. Maybe 3.
Awesome. Well, I hope everybody out there enjoys the video aspect of this, because this is going to be kind of the new normal, at least for right now.
And truth be told, we only get 40 minutes, and there's no way that we will only talk for 40 minutes. So it will look like it's spliced, because it was.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, for sure. But it's one of those things where it's like, if you want to donate,
$150 is all it costs. Donate, like, we just need 15 people to donate $10, and we can get Zoom and not have to splice it, and it'll be because of you.
There you go. So that's it. Wait,
it is 10, not 10 you're not a 501c3, so it is not tax deductible. You would just be giving us $10. It's just needs to make a sign.
Yeah, well, my Venmo is on my Instagram now, so go to my Instagram, hit up my Venmo, send it and say for podcast. I'll send it to Bruce to buy the thing. Yeah, we'll make it happen.
Okay,
for sure. So that's what we need. We just need. Oh, you know what? We'll do a GoFundMe here soon
for $150.
I bet you somebody would do it. So awesome. Well, hey, thank you so much for joining us on video. Make sure you connect with us on all the socials and on the podcast avenues. What are they called? Apps,
social media
platforms,
or all the platforms. Social media platforms. I mean, all the podcast platforms.
Yeah. Make sure you just hit that. Oh, and one last thing. We hit 3,000 downloads for the podcast this week.
Totally cool.
And so thank you so much for that. We would like to see. This is my personal. I would like to see by the end of the year 4,000 downloads. I would love to see that. I think that'd be awesome. So keep sharing. You guys are doing a great job. Keep sharing the podcast with everybody. And if you're just like, hey, Bruce's book, season 1, season 3, we got the Sermon on the Mount. Season 5, we're doing James, right? I mean, it's just blown up, man. We're gonna be, hitting that 4,000 soon. So keep sharing it there. So, awesome. Okay, that's it. Cool. Keep it fun in God's word each and every day, and we will see you next time on the podcast, video edition.
On video, of the podcast. You'll be able to see us. We won't see you, but you'll see us.
Yeah, exactly. So
cool.
All right, peace out.
Peace.
Thank you for listening to Fold and Share Theology. You can follow Bruce on multiple social media platforms at bpags2, as well as Justin Mercier on Instagram at justinmercier13. Additionally, you can check us out on Facebook and Instagram at Fold and Share Theology. Until then, keep unfolding God's Word each and every day.